Hello, and welcome to Raises and Promotions in the U.S. Workplace. Today I am joined by several of my colleagues where we will be discussing the following topics in order: the law by Lisa Taylor, wage changes by Aidan Macias and Son Deng, the Great Resignation by Stephanie Thomas, and strategies for asking for raises and promotions and what to do if you're denied by Adela Hill and Dylan Nguyen. So grab your favorite note-taking instrument and let's dive in. Hello and welcome. My name is Lisa Taylor, and this is 5 things you need to know about the laws concerning wages and promotions in the U.S. workplace. Whether you're entering the workplace for the first time or a veteran, here are 5 things you need to know about the laws or lack thereof concerning raises, wages, and promotions in the U.S. workplace. All right, our 5 categories or topics today are the current minimum wage laws, promotions without raises, minimum raise percentage, what is the FLSA, and the Equal Pay Act. Okay, first up, you need to know the difference between the federal minimum wage and the state minimum wage. The federal rate and the state of Texas minimum wage currently are set at $7.25 per hour. They actually match each other currently, and this is according to the U.S. Department of Labor. This rate has not been raised since 2009. You may remember that President Biden, as part of his campaign platform, was in favor of raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. And after doing some fact checking on PolitiFact, I found out that unfortunately he could not get enough support in Congress to pass this into law. However, there were many businesses that have raised starting pay rates in response to COVID-19. After the fact, we've seen a number of establishments go ahead and boost pay regardless of what the federal mandate currently is. As you can see, this is a color-coded map from the U.S. Department of Labor. And if you look at the legend over here, you'll see that the states in dark blue actually have a higher minimum wage currently than the federal. Some states have the same minimum wage, such as Texas. There are some states that have a lower minimum wage, some that have no minimum wage, and then some states that have a special minimum wage. Okay, as you can see here, this statistic from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, that 24% of establishments increased pay or paid bonuses because of COVID-19. Some of the industries that they saw the highest percentages were with healthcare, food services, social assistance, retail trade, manufacturing, transportation, and warehousing. I personally know of someone who was working part-time for a big box retailer, hired in at $10.25 per hour, placed on furlough, and when everyone was brought back, anyone who was not making $15 an hour was automatically bumped up to that rate, which is a very, very nice pay raise. Number 2, promotions without raises. Is this legal? Is it legal for an employer to offer you a promotion without a raise? The short answer is yes, it is legal. There is no specific law that states, according to the Balance website, your employer does not have to offer you a raise at the same time as a promotion. You are also not obligated to take this promotion. That is something that is generally expected for you to work out with your specific employer. There's not anything mandating. They're not breaking any laws. This is you might look upon this situation as when you're going through the interview process. This might be a good question to pose to your employer that you're interviewing with. Do you routinely offer promotions without pay raises? This would be something that would be a very good question for you to pose to an employer and get an answer before you accept employment. All right, the third thing you need to know is there is no law setting a minimum percentage for pay raises. According to Fortune magazine, many employers will be handing out larger pay raises this year, anywhere from 5 to 7%. And as you can see right here, that we are experiencing historic inflation. So you don't have to be too much of a mathematician to figure out that if you receive a 5% pay raise, but inflation is 19%, that doesn't work out in your favor. Although it is nice that they are giving out some larger raises and cost of living increases, like I said, the math doesn't really work out in your favor. All right, the fourth thing you need to know about is what is the FLSA, or the Federal Labor Standards Act. All right, the Federal Labor Standards Act, or FLSA, establishes the minimum wage, overtime pay, record-keeping, and youth employment standards affecting employees in both the private sector and the government level. Basically, this is just a very important piece of law that has been put in place to protect you so that you are not being taken advantage of in the workplace, whether it be with a fair wage or being compensated for your overtime work. It is put in place to protect workers in the U.S. And finally, the Equal Pay Act. What is it, and whom does it protect? All right, the Equal Pay Act of 1963, according to the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, this act is actually part of the FLSA as an amendment, and it basically says this. When you have men and women who work in the same establishment, who perform similar jobs with equal skills, effort, and responsibility in similar working conditions, you cannot pay a man more than you can a woman. I mean, this is, in essence, this is what this Equal Pay Act is about. Very important to know before you become employed somewhere, that this is to protect wage discrimination. All right, as I wrap up my portion of raises and promotions in the U.S. workplace, here are some handy resources for you in the unfortunate event that you have some sort of situation in a workplace where you are experiencing an issue with either wages or promotions, or you feel like you're being discriminated against in some fashion. Number one, I highly recommend that you check your employer's policies and procedures. It is their responsibility to get this information to you. It is also your responsibility to read it and make yourself familiar with it so that you know when you're hired exactly what you're getting into. The Texas Workforce Commission, the U.S. Department of Labor, and the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission are also excellent resources, jumping off places in the unfortunate event, as I said, that you should need more information because for some reason you are experiencing wage discrimination or any other thing. These 3 websites will probably be able to answer any questions you have and guide you through pretty much any situation you might encounter, or point you in the direction to get resolution. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but you have these resources at the ready if it's necessary. So that is all that I have for you today on the laws surrounding raises and promotions in the U.S. workplace.
Pay agreements and an act that goes into it, wages in the fair FLSA for short. Alright, so pay agreements. Basically, a pay agreement is a agreement between you, the employee, and the employer. The employer must stick to what has been promised in that pay agreement and that wage agreement. As well as the employee sticks to what is said and doesn't disobey what is in the agreement. It can also be a wage agreement can be established by both verbal and written evidence. So either or. But regarding pay should be carefully expressed. Wage agreements, basically, employers need to ensure that they say what they mean and mean what they say. Basically, making sure that they are 100% doing what they are supposed to do for your agreement. This is Texas government pay agreements under texas.gov/news. And in the Texas government thing, they say under the general common law, an employer must pay an employee according to the wage agreement that was in effect when the work was performed. This general rule finds expression to one degree or another in the Fair Labor Standards Act and in almost every state wage payment statute. If there is no written agreement, agencies and courts will use some variation of the best evidence rule to determine what the employer-employee agreed to when the employment relationship was formed. Basically saying that when that agreement was formed, the FLSA Act, which in itself it covers minimum wage, covers overtime pay, recording keeping, and youth employment standards. Youth employment standards means keeping young children out of work, as well as covering your overtime, making sure the minimum wage is up to date, as now it's over $7.25 where it was in 2009. It also covers over overtime, where you shouldn't be working over a certain amount of hours, or you shouldn't be working less than a certain amount of hours. It also goes over how an employee must display an official poster outlining the requirements of the FLSA. Employers must also keep employee time and pay records. And this is in the dol.gov/agencies/WHED/FLSA, all in the first area. Now, where does that go? Where does the FLSA Act come into play? Well, basically, it just ensures that those agreements are being met. It ensures those pay agreements are what they are, mean what they mean, and are being held accountable for. So that if you do have to go to court eventually with a employer, so that you don't get messed over financially. Some companies also have like reducing pay cuts, so you may see that as well. It is perfectly legal. It can go up to 20% or more. So also be aware of that when stuff like this happens. Some companies also have employee sign policies. So final pay periods, if the employee violates any employment agreement or a particular policy. So basically they can reduce your pay. They can make a final pay period where they end up firing you over time. Also, they can take away your overtime pay in a sense that they can reduce it if you do not stick to the agreements, as they said. There are, however, agreements like this are largely untested before the agency and in the courts. While the author has not seen an employer lose, some attorneys have commented that such agreements are suspect from the standpoint that an employee does not know when such a provision might affect his pay because he does not know when to expect a discharge. However, an employee can take a lot of the ambiguity out of such an agreement by making the lower pay rate apply only to working occurring after the violation by the employee. It's very complicated in trying to determine which around what time and when that reduction occurs. All right, we're going to continue more into the history of wage changes in the PowerPoint. All right, continuing on history of wage changes by me. So the start of the minimum wage. So the minimum wage started as a law that required employers to pay $7.25 an hour, but that does not apply to state law, where the minimum wage can be charged. It can be lower than the federal government wage when an employee is subject to both the state and federal minimum wage laws. The employee is entitled to the higher of the two minimum wages. FLSA plays a part in this as well, and minimum wage. Under the FLSA, the national minimum wage was created in 1938 in order to stabilize the post-depression economy and protect workers in the labor force. FLSA requirements only apply to employees. Higher-ups are actually exempted from the minimum wage provisions because they have a lot more leeway than traditional employees. The FLSA also gives the Secretary of Labor to use methods to evaluate an employer's conduct and enforce minimum wage requirement. So basically, if you're being wronged by your employer, say they're not paying you right, say they're not giving you what is on that pay agreement, they are able to go and enforce the requirements or that pay agreement that was agreed upon. So what is quiet quitting? Quiet quitting is when a person puts nothing but the bare minimum into their job. It has become a trend since the pandemic started as people reflected on where they should put their time and energy. Although now it has been increasingly worse as time goes on, as people are continuing to give nothing to the company through this trend. Quiet quitting is a concept that needs to be seen for why it's happening, as opposed to just assuming a coworker's legacy. Like, see if that worker has started feeling distant with their workspace, or rather what is going on that makes them feel they don't want to do more for the company. It's usually happens when there's a lack of motivation or confidence in their own workspace, not feeling really welcomed in their work environment. So, per se, that they're in an employee's in a toxic environment, or they just don't feel very welcome. They'll feel disencouraged or less motivated to do more for that company, so they'll start quiet quitting. They'll start thinking that I don't have to do anything for this company because I don't even enjoy my own job. So a good way to kind of change that is maybe check on what's going on and change what's happening. Also, look at the employees and see really who is quiet quitting, who is less motivated. All right. And these are my citations for quiet quitting and minimum wage.
So the topic today I have is wage changes. So let's first look at the history of wage changes. In 1938, the Fair Labor Standards Act (FLSA) established the first federal minimum wage at 25 cents an hour. On May 14, 1947, the FLSA was amended by the Poto to Poto Act. This legislation was significant because it resolved some issues as to what constitutes compensable hours worked under FLSA. In 1955, the amendment increased the minimum wage to $1. In 1974, the minimum wage increased to $2 after 19 years. In 1980, the minimum wage increased to $3.10. In 1990, after a decade, the minimum wage was raised by $1.15, which makes the minimum wage $4.25. The 2007 amendments increased the minimum wage to $5.85, and after only a year, it increased to $6.55, and after another year, the minimum wage increased to $7.25 till this day. And all of these informations were according to the United States Department of Labor. Between 1979 and 2020, workers' wages grew by 17.5%, while the productivity grew over 3 times as fast as 61.8%. And this information was gathered by from an article called "Why American Wages Haven't Grown Despite Increases in Productivity," according to the Consumer News and Business channels. In this video, I will be talking about wage changes. The history of wage changes. In 1938, the Fair Labor Standards Act, the FLSA, established the first federal minimum wage at 25 cents an hour. On May 14, 1947, the FLSA was amended by the Poto to Poto Act. This legislation was significant because it resolved some issues as to what constitutes compensable hours worked under the FLSA. In 1955, the amendment increased the minimum wage to $1. In 1974, the minimum wage increased to $2 after 19 years. In 1980, the minimum wage increased to $3.10. There's more into the history of wage changes. In 1990, after a decade, the minimum wage was raised by $1.15, which makes the minimum wage $4.25. The 2000 amendments increased the minimum wage to $5.85, and after only a year, it increased to $6.55, and after another year, the minimum wage increased to $7.25 till today. Between 1979 and 2020, workers' wages grew by 17.5%, while the productivity grew over 3 times as fast, at 61.8%. All of the informations were gathered from the United States Department of Labor, and the statistics were gathered from a website called "Why American Wages Haven't Grown Despite Increases in Productivity," according from consumer news, and business channel.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Thomas. In the following presentation, I'm going to talk about the Great Resignation, also known as the Big Quit. After watching the next presentation, I hope I'm able to answer any questions you might have about the Great Resignation, so grab your pen and paper and let us begin. What is the Great Resignation? The Great Resignation, also known as the Big Quit, began when over 40 million people quit their job. This mass resignation came in 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic and is still going on today. Why was it called the Great Resignation? Anthony Klotz, Associate Professor of Management in the Mays Business School at Texas A&M University, coined the term in May of 2021. He pointed out that as employees across the United States began to transition into post-pandemic life work, many workers started to experience burnouts. This ended up being a key contributor to the Great Resignation. Why did so many people wait until post-pandemic to quit their job? Klotz explains that due to the uncertainty the pandemic caused, many employees stayed at their jobs during the pandemic because the cost of leaving was higher than the cost of staying. But this began to change post-pandemic. The pandemic provided many with the opportunities to reduce expenses, pay off debts, and save money. When you combine employee burnout and enhance financial security, you will have an increase in resignations. Klotz also explains that during the pandemic, Americans began to work remotely for the first time, and they realized they enjoyed it. Working remotely provided flexibility and freedom. As companies ended remote work, many employees did not want to return to the office. Generally speaking, people tend to pursue two goals in life. One is to find happiness, and the other is to find meaning in their life. So when the pandemic hit, many people realized their jobs did not contribute enough to their happiness. So many decided to invest their energy elsewhere and quit their jobs, and that is when the Great Resignation began. After quitting their jobs, some found new jobs that offered better pay. Some found jobs that had more flexibility to work remotely. Some changed their careers completely. Some decided to go back to college to get a degree. Some devoted their time to other aspects of their lives. So let's talk numbers. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2021 alone, over 40 million left their jobs voluntarily. The number of resignations is at an all-time record high. Over 4 million people have quit their jobs every month for the past 14 months, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Hello, and thank you for joining me. My name is Adela Hill, and I would like to take your attention for just a few moments to explore how raises and promotions in the U.S. work for you. From time to time, I'm going to be reading my paper so that I can explain each one of my points to you. First, let's start with the different strategies on how you can ask for a raise. First and foremost, you will need to know how to deliver these 6 topics. First, understand why you are asking for a raise. Be confident in what you know and what you are saying. Second, rehearse what you want to say. Just to piggyback on the previous comment, rehearse is the best thing that you can do. It's the key, it's the source. Third, gather salary data for your position. research on that position that you want to obtain. Make sure that you know exactly the amount and what they're paying for what you are asking. Fourth, bring it up to your manager before the company's review cycle. Have a meeting with your manager. Let them know what your interests are. Let them know that you're looking for another advancement within the company. Fifth, share a list of your accomplishments and impact. Throughout the year, let your manager know all the things that you have accomplished, and with you accomplishing that, let them know that the impact that each one of your accomplishments have become a benefit towards the company. And last but not least, ask about other possible promotions. If that position is something that you cannot obtain, maybe there's another position within the company that you're able to ask for a promotion that your manager can work with you. Now, my next set, we're going to ask about how to ask for a promotion. You want to reflect. Go back to what you know. Do some more research. Make sure that the job fits you and you can grow. Build your case, what strength you can bring to your job role. Consider timing. No time is a good time, but when you want something, you have to go for it. Plant the seed. Sell yourself for the position that you want. You have to also nurture the seed. Show your skills and questions. Be engaged in learning and advancing in the company. Don't be reckless. Be careful about what you say and don't compare to what other companies can do for you. And finally, be patient to a point. We all like to be patient and believe we are being patient. The best thing you can do is to follow up every 6 to 8 weeks so that your manager still knows your interests and you know your status. They always say it doesn't hurt to ask. So now I'm going to forward the next half of this video over to Dylan Wynn, and he's going to talk to you about what happens when you are denied. Thank you.
Strategies on how to ask for a raise and a promotion by Adela Hill. How to ask for a raise. Understand why you are asking for a raise. Rehearse what you want to say. Gather salary data from your position. Bring it up to your manager before the company review cycle. Share a list of your accomplishments and impact. Ask about possible promotions. Understand this. Companies tend to know when they are underpaying and when it's time for a raise, but will rarely make the first move outside of any normal promotion cycle, says Nick Dewey, CEO of e-commerce savings platform Withrisk. If a company values you and wants to keep you, they will do what's right and make it happen. And if not, it might be time for you to start looking for a role that's a better fit professionally and financially. U.S. private employers are raising wages. A Willis Towers Watson survey found that on average, employers are expecting to increase wages by 3.4% in 2022. This information can be located, an article that written by Kawanta Dawn, How to Ask for a Raise and What to Say, built in June 16, 2022. Asking for a promotion. How to ask for what you want. Reflect. Do some research, build your case, consider timing, plant the seed, nurture the seed. Don't be reckless, be patient to a point. What the experts say, asking for a promotion makes you feel vulnerable, says Sabrina Nawaz, the global CEO coach, leadership keynote speaker, and writer. You're not in control. You're putting yourself in the hands of your manager to be judged, and you might be judged not worthy. You may fret that you'll be bugging your boss or come across as greedy and self-serving. Case study. Ask at the right time and request specific feedback. Tom Grimble, the founder and CEO of LaSalle Network, a staffing and recruiting firm headquartered in Chicago, has requested and granted many promotions over the course of his career. The biggest lesson I've learned is that no one is going to hold your hand, he says. You have to own your career. Years ago, when he was a salesperson at a David Green Associates, he decided to ask his manager for a promotion. The timing was right. He had just finished a stellar year of sales. I was not only hitting, but exceeding my metrics on what was expected of me, he recalls. But before talking to his boss, Tom did homework on the role that he wanted, National Sales Manager. I spent a lot of time understanding what this job entailed and how the people who had these titles accomplished their goals. This information, works cited, can be found written by Knight Rebecca, How to Act for Promotion, with the Harvard Business Review back on August the 18th of 2022.
Thank you, Adela, for this transition. My name is Dylan Nguyen, and I'm going to be talking about being denied a promotion. Being denied a promotion is going to be rough on you, especially during the beginning. However, is what you do afterwards is what's going to count. But based off this article by Ivy Avec, written by Kelly Vo, there's certain do's or don'ts that you want to try to do. Some don'ts is don't overreact, because you might say something that you'll regret later. Don't be afraid to talk to your manager and vent out all your frustrations. It's okay. You are human. And some do's is talk to your manager and see how you can be better. Vent your frustrations, like I said before, and do whatever you can and just look at your options. If you think this company is good for you, stick with it and try to get promoted. If not, you have other options out there. However, I'll go later in depth in the PowerPoint.
Hello everyone, I'm back to continue the discussion of what to do if you're denied a promotion and what to do about it. So first, you need to stay professional. Even after being rejected, thank the manager for considering your request. And then don't overreact at work for not getting the promotion that you wanted. If you need to vent that frustration, just do it. Do it with friends, family, but not at work. Number 2, seek feedback. What you think about yourself doesn't match what the person in charge thinks of you. However, do ask how to improve when asking for feedback, so it shows willingness to learn and also improve. Number 3, look at your options. Just because you got denied a promotion here doesn't mean you should quit, but it means that you should actually consider what the job means to you. Is this job worth staying at, or is it time to move on so you can find a job that actually treats you the way that you want to be treated and where you truly belong? And finally, ask for support. Ask the manager or senior mentor for advice on how to improve or advance in the company. And also, by sticking around them for shows that you're willing to have the commitment and show that you can actually be capable of doing what is needed. Well, to sum everything up, rejection is bound to happen at some point, but stay professional. And be sure to ask for any feedback to improve on getting the promotion in the future. And also, if you truly believe that this job isn't for you after the rejection, look into different options that you might have seen before, but now truly see it again, and you might get the position that you want. And finally, my last tip for you is to find someone that can truly help you, like a supervisor or a senior mentor of the department that you work for, to show the commitment and the dedication that you have for this company to actually get the promotion that you want.